Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Lower Mainland renters take their building concerns straight to the owners.
We're speaking to your building manager who's harassing and abusing us.
Listen, we have been working to repair anything that we're aware of.
And we'll look at every unit and we'll come up with a plan to fix it.
Worries about safety and mold lead to some tense exchanges. Plus, anchors away after a monumental year.
Really feeling proud of what we have achieved this year.
Vancouver's cruise ship season hits new highs amid concerns about the environmental impact.
Cruise ships, first of all, need to stop using heavy fuel oil.
And it's back.
For driving, it's pretty miserable, but good for the hunting season.
Parts of BC are getting snow, but drought hazards remain.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin with a heated confrontation between renters and building management in Vancouver today. Let's bring in our Tanya Fletcher. Tanya, things became downright tense inside an office this morning. What happened?
Yeah, so Dan, it started out as a rally held by renters outside the head office of Cressy Development Group, which runs several buildings in the Lower Mainland. So this group had been protesting out front with signs and a letter to present to Cressy. Someone inside the building opened the door to them with news cameras following. And here's the moment they entered the Cressy offices and the tenants confronted staff. Take a look at the whole video.
Is this Cressy?
Yes, wow, that's great.
Hi.
No.
Hi, we're delegates for 4 apartments owned by Cressy.
I'm so sorry, I cannot be one of the delegates. I am the one.
I've been trying to speak to you since August 30th about mold in my apartment. Water flooding my apartment, and nothing has been done. Nothing has been done.
Yeah, we delivered you a letter 6 weeks
We're
ago.
speaking to your building manager who's harassing and abusing us.
Listen, we have been working to repair anything that we're aware of. So
Would you like to see the mold in my apartment?
There are countless repairs, sir.
This is for guys. This is like we had one letter submitted. We have followed up on all those issues.
You never got back to us.
We'll look at every unit and we'll come up with a plan to fix it. We'll do that today, okay?
Let's do that.
Maintenance met.
That's not enough. We have a letter of demands. We want all of these demands met. We don't just want the maintenance issues looked at. We want an emergency contact. That's required by the RTA.
That's give you an emergency contact. I thought we already had one. If we don't, we'll get you one immediately, okay?
Do you know where the building?
Tanya, we often see these types of tenant rallies. What was the issue that led up to this protest?
Yeah, these tenants were from 4 East Vancouver apartment buildings collectively owned by Cressy, and they were protesting what they call, as you heard, poor living conditions and safety risks. We spoke to one of them earlier as well.
Maintenance requests routinely go unfulfilled, sometimes for weeks on end. This often includes emergency repairs, which actually have to be completed under the RTA. These, go unfulfilled for weeks. Elevators that, are out of service, even though there are people in some buildings who have disabilities who actually require them for mobility.
Now, the tenants claim there are fire risks, pest and mold infestations in some cases. They say their demands for change have not been met, so today's rally was to demand accountability and action. In a statement to CBC News, Cressy says they take the situation very seriously and that, quote, "We've acknowledged the tenants' concerns in the letter received on September 11th. To address this, we hired a new assistant building manager and initiated training on September 28th. We take responsibility for not communicating earlier, but have started immediate assessments and necessary repairs, relocating one tenant to a newer downtown rental building." Now, Cressy went on to say they're committed to individual meetings with tenants to address these concerns and prioritize repairs, and that their team, they say, is actively coordinating meetings. Dan?
Reporting live for us, Tanya Fletcher. Thanks very much. Now, still with housing, BC's official opposition says people ought to have more flexibility when it comes to short-term rentals. As Emily Vance reports, it's proposing several changes to the government's plan.
BC United says people ought to be allowed to operate a short-term rental on one property in addition to their primary residence. That's if they don't already have a secondary suite for short-term rental in their home. They argue the changes would benefit people who have a family property like a cabin that they would not otherwise rent.
This is family property primarily, and it's certainly not going to turn into rental property if they're not, if they determine that they can't do short-term rentals there.
They also want the definition of a short-term rental to be brought down from less than 90 days to less than 30 days for people who may need to travel for work, like healthcare staff. But the government says the changes are loopholes and would be a step backwards when it comes to providing more affordable housing.
What we need to do is find ways to get more of that housing back to people who desperately need it in our communities, and any suggestion to do that is actually heading the wrong direction.
Premier David Eby is also pushing back on the proposals.
The whole goal of the opposition is to drive holes through this legislation to make it easier for investors to do short-term rentals. That is what they are motivated by.
The proposed amendments are unlikely to pass in an NDP majority government. Emily Vance, CBC News, Victoria.
The final cruise ship of the season sets sail from the Port of Vancouver this afternoon. It caps off record-breaking seasons for tourism in our province after years of tough pandemic impacts. As Liam Britton reports, it's also a year marked by a new focus on the environment.
Everybody's still unpacking and we got our drink on.
Vancouver's last cruise ship of 2023 has served its final round.
We got our drinks. Here, give me two.
As the Holland America Line's Koningsdam steams away, 2023's cruise ship season is in the books, and it charted a big year for local businesses.
Ecstatic. So I'm really feeling proud of what we have achieved this year with all the cruise service partners, cruise lines, and it's definitely a record-breaking season, and I think everyone is happy.
Here are some big nautical numbers the port is flagging. Ships, 332, a new record. Passengers, 1.25 million, also a new record. And the benefit to the local economy, $3 million per ship.
Yeah, the pandemic was a tough year with no cruise seasons. For two back-to-back seasons was completely washed out. And then, of course, the cruise began, and last year we still saw good numbers, but the occupancy rates were still low. So this is really great.
Both the federal government and industry say this summer included a new focus on environmental measures. Cruise ships are carbon intensive, spewing greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. The Port of Vancouver says its shore power program is cutting greenhouse gases by plugging ships in to the local electrical grid. Plus, ship itineraries are being adjusted to reduce carbon impacts, and ships are slowing down to protect endangered killer whales. The feds also have new rules to keep ships from dumping waste like toilet water too close to shore. But groups like Stand.Earth say more needs to be done.
They didn't include any enforcement. They didn't include third-party observers, and there are notable geographic exemptions to those rules.
She says the industry can take additional measures.
Cruise ships, first of all, need to stop using heavy fuel oil, and that needs to be a policy coming from Canada that it's banned for all ship types.
Now, we asked Canada's Transportation Ministry for a response to these concerns and if any further measures were coming when it comes to cruise ship pollution. We didn't hear back by deadline. Now, while the Port of Vancouver is hoping that 2024 is an even bigger year when it comes to cruise ships, environmentalists would like things a bit more even keel, so it's not just smooth sailing economically and troubled waters environmentally. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The provincial government has introduced new legislation it claims will address some of the barriers preventing global paramedics from finding work here in Canada. The International Credentials Recognitions Act we told you about yesterday aims to attract more skilled immigrants to BC and get them working here as fast as possible. Right now, newcomers have to go through lengthy language testing and long waits for credential checks, something industry experts say needs to change to meet high demand for their services.
I think we'd all agree that nobody wants any corners cut here, but we do all, I think, as individuals and society know that there can be, over time, that bureaucracies can build up and administrative processes. And those are where I think some of the key efficiencies can happen for sure.
The new legislation covers 29 professions, including lawyers, paramedics, teachers, and architects. A man has pleaded guilty in a horrific crash that killed 2 students at UBC more than 2 years ago. In September 2021, Evan Smith and Emily Selward, both 18 at the time, were walking on a sidewalk near a student residence early in the morning when a car veered off the road and hit them. The Crown says 22-year-old Tim Carl Robert Gurner has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of dangerous driving causing death. A sentencing hearing is scheduled to take place in early November. A group of researchers, family members, and brain injury survivors are calling for a national strategy on brain injuries. They're traveling to Ottawa and will meet with politicians all week. A mother who lost her son to a drug addiction after a traumatic injury, as well as a doctor, spoke with our Stephen Quinn on CBC Radio's The Early Edition today.
My son, Jacob, he was run over by a pickup truck, which left him with a traumatic brain injury. This beautiful young man, his life was forever changed. The mental anguish that he suffered caused him to become a substance abuser. That term is not well received in the mental health substance use community, but it is true. And with that, it eventually led to his passing, his death in 2021, November 11th, 2021, Remembrance Day, a day I'll never forget. He suffered from psychosis from his brain injury. He had significant mental anguish, and that's why he turned to the relief that street drugs provided for him.
You will see that people may use different substances, including opiates, as a way to cope with the chronic pain, as a way to cope with the stress, the financial burden that comes, with the experience of the traumatic brain injury. Is going to be very common that people may need something to escape. But oftentimes these symptoms are quite chronic. They need long-term care. And that's where we are dropping a little bit the ball. There's still a lot of stigma, lack of recognition. We don't have the adequate tools to identify in the ER by first responders. So we need to increase the awareness and education.
My son was rejected multiple times because he was complicated. He was an addict and he had a brain injury. They would say, no, we can't take him because he has a brain injury, or we can't help him with his brain injury because he has an addiction issue. So recognizing these concurrent disorders is pretty significant and will change how our communities see and view people. We have to reduce that stigma as well, as Mauricio mentioned. That's really important. And I think a bill like this, C277, is going to really improve the outcomes for those folks with the brain injury and for our communities in recognizing these are humans too.
The federal court has now approved the largest settlement in Canadian history. Today, more than $23 billion for First Nations children and families racially discriminated against by Ottawa. The federal government agreed to pay after a human rights tribunal found it chronically underfunded First Nations child and family services. As Olivia Stefanovich tells us, the decision could be life-changing.
Emotion broke out in the courtroom after a federal court judge approved more than $23 billion in compensation.
I'm overwhelmed, speechless. I never thought that judge would render a decision today.
I will be issuing an order approving the final settlement agreement.
Zacchaeus Trout and his wife waited years for this moment. A small measure of justice for their children, Sinead and Jacob Trout. Ottawa failed to provide proper health support for their rare neurological disorder. Sinead and Jacob both died before the age of 10.
Their names will be in a history books. It's a history that's been made here today.
I'm kind of overwhelmed. I wish my mom was here, Marina Beadle.
After she died, Jonathan Miwoski told the court he continued his mother's fight against the federal government to get supports for his brother, Jeremy.
I hope this will keep Jeremy inside his home and keep him loved and keep him with the people that he needs to be with.
The court also heard from young people, ripped away from their families and nations in such high numbers. There are more kids in care now than at the height of residential schools.
I don't fit in with my adoptive family. I also don't fit in with my home community. But heartbreakingly, I know that I'm actually not alone.
This is a lesson for the country.
The Indigenous Services Minister says she hopes the decision leads to change. But one of the lead lawyers in the case says there are more lawsuits pending against Ottawa.
$23.34 billion is being paid to compensate this class because that's the extent of the harm that was caused. Should that cause a government to change its ways, to change its attitudes? I would hope so.
More than 300,000 First Nations people are eligible for compensation. They're expected to begin receiving tens of thousands of dollars each next year. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
If you have noticed a dip in the availability of sugar at local grocery stores, you're not alone. It's been almost a month since workers at the Rogers Sugar Refinery in Vancouver walked off the job. The union claims the company wants employees to work 12-hour shifts and run the factory 7 days a week.
We just want to get back to the table again. You know, we have our guys sitting out on the road and they're yelling at management, you know, you guys like to make money and we'd like to make sugar, so let's get this done.
Rogers Sugar declined to comment, but tells CBC News in an email that, quote, the Vancouver plant is operating at a level that generally supports valued customers. It's beginning to look a lot like a version of fall in parts of BC, especially in the Kootenays. Yep, there it is. Cranbrook has seen a dusting of snow, and while the flurries weren't exactly sticking, they were getting mixed reviews.
For driving, it's pretty miserable, but good for the hunting season. So other than that, it's not good for work, and it's a little early in my opinion.
It's kind of bittersweet. It's like it marks the end of the season, and I'm always looking forward to like sunny days and sitting outside and stuff like that. But with the snow coming in, I'm kind of excited. You know, it's just like a refresher. It's a blank slate, and we're getting ready for winter. We do a bunch of snowboarding and cross-country skiing and stuff, so I'm ready for new activities.
Now, it is expected to remain cold all week in the Kootenays, with more flurries expected over the coming days. Now, the snow is also starting to fly further west of the Kootenays. Last night, it hit the Coquihalla Highway just past the Great Bears snow shed. Now, the snow isn't sticking, but if you are planning on heading that way, reminder, you need to have winter tires or chains on. Science and climate specialist Darius Madavi here with our first weather forecast. And amid the snow, and some people like it, we still have a whole bunch of drought across this province.
Yes, and quite severe, especially in the northeast. That's where we're still seeing the most drought. You'll notice not much precipitation coming to the northern parts of the province. Keep in mind, we don't have radar coverage for much of northern BC, but even central BC, really all the precipitation that we're getting is coming in the form of rain for the south coast, as well as plenty of snow for the eastern part of Vancouver Island, and some snow coming to places like the Okanagan and Kelowna, and as we talked about, Cranbrook and the Kootenays as well. So if we talk about the drought, we want to focus on the fact that at this point last year, we were still getting a little bit worse in some places, but we sort of hit the peak of how bad it got, at least until December, when things took another turn as we got quite another set of dry conditions. But this is pretty much where we were at 1 year ago versus where we're at right now. And you'll notice the northeast looking pretty similar, a bit worse for through central BC. But other than that, we're looking pretty a bit better than we were this time last year. Although, with that being said, at this point, we were starting to improve. And here we had many more months of drought conditions before this. So we're still in quite a precarious situation, even though we are definitely doing better than we were just a couple weeks ago because of all this rain that's been passing through. Also, temperatures coming down is good news in terms of the drought. Things have been well above where they should be this time of year, especially in the north. So seeing those temperatures come down, although I'm sure some people aren't very happy about it, is good news in terms of the drought.
All right, Darius, we'll check in later. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
A Vancouver City councillor says it is time to bring speed and red light safety cameras to more intersections. Christine Boyle has announced a motion to have those cameras installed at Vancouver's most dangerous intersections. She defines them as those with more than 100 crashes causing injury or death between 2018 and 2022, and those near a school with over 50 crashes. There are more than 100 such intersections without safety cameras right now.
Speed enforcement cameras are an efficient and effective solution. Study after study reflects that. Health authorities have advocated for them because they make a difference. They reduce injuries They reduce deaths and they make our streets safer.
Boyle will officially bring forward the motion on November 1st. People who use one of Vancouver's largest community centres want council to reprioritize its complete renewal. They claim money has been put aside for projects that don't meet community needs. The Britannia Community Services Centre Society is holding an open house at the centre in East Van tonight, and our Michelle Morton joins us live from there. Michelle, what are people telling you?
Yeah, Dan. So board members tell me tonight is the first open house to be held since the city decided in the summer to prioritize maintenance of the pool and other facilities rather than replacement. So in 2018, money was earmarked for the renewal and planning for a phased approach started. But community members are gathering here to come up with a game plan of how to move forward in the interim. But they say they just want to see buildings start because maintenance doesn't address what the big issue is, which is space.
This is the second time that a master plan has stopped, and so what happens is you have to start from the beginning again. So we really don't want this master plan to stop. We need to keep it going. We need to keep the momentum going.
Michelle, why are some people pushing back against money for maintenance?
Well, they would rather see that money be put towards a community gym. They're using the school's gym right now, which they say is making it difficult to create programming for seniors and children because that space isn't available during the day. And members also say they need a fitness and pool facility, that the current pool is leaking, and just more space in general to serve a community that's growing with a lot of vulnerable people.
All the food programs that are being offered here are already at capacity. There's such a huge need and a desire for people to engage in community through food, but we're maxed out.
Being able to utilize this site as an active community member has been really important for me and my family, especially working here in the senior center. I get to hang out with my grandmother.
And Michelle, we know what the city wants and what members of the community and the community center wants. What happens next?
Yeah, so Councillor Pete Fry was here earlier. He lives in the neighborhood, and he says he'll be taking a motion to council over the matter to see the city recommit to the renewal. So that's next week, but also adds that money will be needed from all levels of government. The Vancouver School Board is the majority landholder. But City Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young told CBC earlier that $20 million has been earmarked for the renewal in 2023. But in the meantime, maintenance is needed, and council is expecting an update report from staff this week. And in the meantime, the city says in a statement it recognizes the community center offers a lot of important programs and that the city says it's committed to ensuring programming continues. Dan.
Michelle Morton reporting live from the Britannia Community Center in East Vancouver. Thank you. Coming up, how to build your rainy day fund. Why financial experts say it's more important than ever to have some sort of buffer in your wallet in the case of disaster. We have a live interview after this. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. Gloria Timothy has been caring for her granddaughters for nearly 6 years, ever since her son, a former soldier, died due to complications related to PTSD. Since the federal government switched to Canada Life insurance coverage, she suddenly can't claim the girl's medical benefits.
Submitting claims through Sun Life for the last 5 years, I was called a payee. I would submit the claims for the children and they would reimburse me. And I had no issues of getting reimbursed for everything I submitted for the children for 5 years now. They both see therapists. Alexis was going bi-weekly appointments and I put them on hold for now. The bills have added up and I am on a fixed income, a widow, and I just can't keep laying all this money out.
Ever since our father passed away back in 2011, my mother started deteriorating and she developed manic bipolar, depressive bipolar, which led to her self-medicating with prescription drugs and drugs in general. And over that time, I'm pretty sure she developed schizophrenia and was very paranoid about everything. So within that time, a few years after my dad passing, me and my sister left my mom and came to live with my Nana, as it was way better and safer for us to be here. So since then, we haven't had any contact with her. It's been about 5, almost 6 years now, and we would like to keep it that way.
I contacted the military. They requested me to get a notarized letter from a lawyer. I got a letter notarized from CIS stating that I was the legal guardian. I waited a week and called the military back, and they said, yes, we received this. We're going to escalate this. Someone from Canada Life in our office will contact you. And once she contacted me, she said, I can't speak to you. You're not the member. And that ended the conversation.
And after that, I ended up contacting Canada Life myself. And they told me that in order for my sister to be added on, she could be added on under me and I could submit claims for her, my mother would have to sign over the power of my sister to me, which again is not recommended for safety reasons. And they all did want to help, as I did explain my situation to them, but there was nothing they said they could do due to it being in legislation. And I find that really unfair, as everyone doesn't have a nuclear family, right? Their life isn't perfect. So why would that be in legislation? It's really upsetting. It frustrates me. It makes me so sad. It's just, I don't understand how they could just take something away like that.
We have all heard the advice, save money for a rainy day. You never know when it will come. Here in BC, though, those rainy days may manifest as raging floods or wildfires. Carrie Taylor is a financial planning coach living in BC's interior. As someone living in the forest outside Vernon, she has perhaps too much personal experience with evacuations. She joins us now to tell us about financial planning for climate disaster. Carrie, first of all, what are the key steps to take from a financial perspective to prepare for a climate emergency?
Oh, good question. You need to do a little math to see how much you need. I know the rule of thumb is 3 months, but it's really a personal situation. Do you have debt? Do you have kids? Do you have a household with dual income, single? You need to look at your own life and put that into perspective, whether you need more than 3 months or not.
What are the main components of an emergency fund?
Well, you need to look at your full picture. A lot of it can come down to protecting yourself with some insurance. So look at your home insurance, see what your coverage is. A lot of home insurance will also cover your stay away from home if you've been evacuated. So it's good to get insurance when you don't need it. So this is a really good time of year to look at this.
We do know that there are people who
There's
live
other
in areas
stuff too that you should look at.
Yeah. We do know that there are people in parts of this province where, depending on where they live, they can't get insurance for various things, be it floods, be it fires, etc. What about them?
Yeah, no, this is huge. So you need to look at how much money you need for your own personal situation. Most people will qualify for employment insurance, and this can take up a huge brunt of what goes into an emergency fund. So the first thing you do, and that's everyone's favorite thing, is a little bit of elementary math. Add up your monthly expenses and then subtract any luxuries that you can cut. Now, be realistic because you got to live. Now that we've got your monthly total, look at your yearly expenses. These tend to be sneaky things that, sneak up on you, but they're actually known things like your car payments, your car insurance, summer camp if you've got kids, and your taxes. And last but not least, a little bit more math, add this to your monthly total. And if you can put it together and see where you're at in 3 months, maybe you'll need more, maybe you'll need less. But the most important step is to set up an automatic transfer of the money. When your paycheck hits your bank account, be sure to automate it to a specific dedicated emergency fund account so you see it, you know it's growing, and don't touch it. Be sure to use it for only emergencies. This isn't for something like, oh, I forgot to pay a bill. You should know your bills are coming, but this is for catastrophic things like you got to leave. You got to find a place to stay. You have to evacuate.
And Carrie, lastly, what about people, though, who are living paycheck to paycheck? And more people are doing that in this province as expenses rise and inflation takes a bite.
Yeah, no, for sure. About 1 in 4 Canadians can only withstand an emergency up to $500. So this is really a hard point because of the cost of housing and the cost of food. I would suggest start small. Don't look at full 3 months, full 4 months, 1 month. Start small and look at what you can put a little bit away at a time. Just chip away. Small steps can help you a lot if you need to dash.
Carrie Taylor, financial planning expert for climate disaster. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Friend turned foe. Michael Cohen took the stand today in Donald Trump's fraud trial. What he had to say and Trump's reaction after this.
And no smiles.
Just a few days ago, these men were flying high, all of them stock investors and promoters in a job that seemed steady, a fast life, but a reliable one, until yesterday. That's when the shock came.
It seemed very, very unbelievable that anything like this could happen.
Caught everybody, I believe, by surprise, even their big pros. And everybody's so uncertain, nobody knows what's going on.
Right now, you're telling us it's too late to sell. We'll be crazy to sell.
Absolutely too late to sell.
The shock passed. Now the brokers and investors have come to drink and contemplate, and to add up their losses.
I could stand to lose my entire salary on this. Yes, very definitely, because the public companies will not be able to afford to pay me.
What would you do in a case like that?
I would have to go and seek other work elsewhere.
Well, it's very frightening because we're commissioned people, and most of the industry is commissioned, and
You might lose your commission now.
well, you just won't make it because there's nobody you can talk to. You can't sell to anybody.
Well, I don't know how I can explain how I felt yesterday, except sick to my stomach. Clients lost a lot of money, and we all lost a lot of money.
But once the dust has settled, they'll start to pick up the pieces, and they're hoping the panic will pass.
The World Health Organization is calling for an immediate ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. It says the situation in Gaza will become catastrophic without more supplies and fuel. The CBC's Margaret Evans looks at the situation in Gaza and other developments in the war. And a warning for you, this report does contain details of violence.
How much more to endure for the people of Gaza? And who will tell the children? The ones in the hospitals in the north and in the south, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians sought refuge after Israel warned them that to remain in the north would make them targets. But death follows them. Burials here after an airstrike took 50 members of the Sakala family in Han Yunis, no longer of this earth for those who would seek their comfort. Sami Shamlak also won't let go, refusing to cover the face of his dead daughter. I want to spend as much time with her as I can, he says. We don't cover the faces of martyrs. Gaza's health ministry says more than 700 Palestinians have been killed over the past day alone by more than 400 Israeli airstrikes. Israeli aircraft also dropped pamphlets from the sky, asking Gazans to pass on information about any hostages being held in Gaza. After an American mother and daughter were released on Friday, Hamas militants released 2 more hostages, both elderly Israeli women, their husbands still believed to be captives. After being examined by doctors at a Tel Aviv hospital, Yocheved Lifshitz, 85, gave an extraordinary account of her ordeal, saying she'd been through hell, beaten by Hamas men, she said, as they took her away by motorcycle. She describes a spider web of tunnels, walking on wet ground with 25 other hostages, later separated. They seemed ready for this, she's saying. They'd prepared for a long time. They had everything, even shampoo and conditioner. She also had harsh words for Israel's defense and intelligence services, saying they'd failed to anticipate the threat, despite warning signs. We were the government's scapegoats, she says. The possibility of more hostage releases is widely seen as delaying Israel's threatened ground invasion of Gaza. Gershon Baskin negotiated with Hamas for the release of an Israeli soldier held in Gaza for 5 years.
The window is open, very small window. Very complex picture out there.
He says if the Hamas tactic is to try to delay a ground invasion with intermittent hostage releases, it won't work.
If there's another one of these, I believe the ground incursion will begin the next day. Israel will not allow itself to be in a position at the mercy of Hamas for a release of 2 people or 3 people or even 5 people every night. It won't last. It's too painful.
Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
He's not quite calling for a ceasefire, but today Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada supports humanitarian pauses in the war between Israel and Hamas.
Our priority throughout this needs to be the continued protection of innocent civilians, the liberation of the hostages. That's why we're engaged closely with our allies on trying to build humanitarian corridors, get aid in, get civilians and foreign nationals out of Gaza. I think there's a lot of conversations going on now about the need for humanitarian pauses, and I think that's something that Canada could ask.
In the U.S., a New York courtroom was the scene of a dramatic 5 years in the making today. Donald Trump came face-to-face with his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, as Cohen took the stand against him. Chris Reyes with what he told the court in Trump's fraud case.
Michael Cohen was on the stand almost all day. He'll be back again tomorrow. He's considered a star witness for the New York State Attorney General. And very quickly into his testimony, he showed exactly why. Cohen made it clear that he helped wildly inflate the value of Trump's assets at the direction of his former boss. He said it was his responsibility to reverse engineer the value of Trump's real estate based on an arbitrary figure that Trump would want to achieve for his net worth. It's been 5 years since the 2 men have been in the same room, but it was obvious this was not a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder.
This is not about Donald Trump versus Michael Cohen or Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump. This is about accountability, plain and simple, and we leave it up to Judge Engoron in order to make all the determinations on that.
He's a proven liar, as you know, so a felon, served a lot of time for lying, and we're going to just go in and see
himself very easily. The Southern District came out with a scathing statement about him. So he's a liar, trying to get a better deal for himself, but it's not going to work. This case, by any other judge, this case would have been over a long time ago.
Cohen has been convicted and served jail time for numerous crimes connected while he was working for Trump. On the attacks against his credibility, he said this.
My credibility should not be in question. Yes, I pled guilty to a 1001 violation, which was lying to Congress, but I have also requested that people continue the sentence. And the sentence is, I did it at the direction of, in concert with, and for the benefit of Donald J. Trump.
Cohen is a fifth witness to take the stand so far in this civil fraud case. Still on the list, Donald Trump's adult children, Ivanka, Eric, Don Jr., and then Donald Trump himself at the very bottom of that list. And he has said that he will take the stand, and he's been in court almost every day of this trial, which is scheduled to last until December. He's being sued for $250 million. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
A sudden about-face of an offside of an on-ice rule, where the NHL has backtracked on its Pride tape ban, and why a former Canuck may have been behind that change. Stick around.
It's a peer-led program. The youth go through phases of the program that we have here. They learn about themselves. They learn coping skills in which they can be healthier, happier, productive people.
I'm not gonna lie, the program is not easy and it's not always fun. It is very difficult and it will push you to your last straw. They are my second family. Portage was the first place I ever felt like I belonged in my life, and I love all the staff to pieces. I spent a lot of days crying and screaming in Katrina and Melanie's office, and they still put up with me and dealt with me, and I will be forever grateful for that.
There's no boundaries for addiction. Like, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be poor. It can destitute a family, it can break them apart.
If I cried today, there'll be tears of joy, tears of hope, because that's what this place is. This is Hope Central, right here. So I guess I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone here at Portage. I cannot thank you enough for being the role model that I couldn't be at that time for my son. How proud I am of you today, son. The way you picked yourself up and dusted yourself off, and the work you've done and continue to do. I am so proud of you. I love you, son. Congratulations.
What I've learned the most is to be caring and empathetic, and you never know what another person has lived through. You have no idea what they've lived through.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohith Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The National Hockey League is partially backing down on a controversial policy. The league says players will no longer be banned from representing social causes like Pride with tape on their sticks. Cameron McIntosh looks at what led to the reversal and why some argue it does not go far enough.
Seavers, what a block, Dermott!
A small gesture, but it appears a game-changing act of defiance, not easily seen Saturday night. Arizona Coyotes defenseman Travis Dermott's stick, those subtle bands of Pride tape on the handle, defying a controversial NHL ban that's now been reversed.
It seemed to be vindictive and petty and unnecessary. It's like
former NHL executive Brian Burke is one of the loudest voices for inclusion in hockey. He credits Dermott and others for pushing back.
So I like anyone who's willing to take that risk when there's not unclear what was going to happen to a player that wore Pride tape.
Pride tape has been in the NHL since 2016, with very little controversy, until this season. The NHL banned it, along with other tape promoting social causes.
It's really perplexing because certainly Pride tape and the success of Pride tape has been in large part to the support of the NHL.
It all follows controversy last season when a handful of players refused to wear Pride-themed warm-up jerseys on team Pride nights, some citing religious objections. The NHL decided to stop on-ice advocacy.
That's just become more of a distraction.
Saturday, Dermott forced the issue, says this NHL writer.
The NHL probably spent the weekend weighing their options about good PR, bad PR. If we punish him for using Pride-themed tape on his stick, how are we going to look?
In a very brief statement, the NHL said after consulting with players, they'll now have the option to voluntarily represent social causes with their stick tape. While the tape is back in, themed warm-up jerseys are not. Disappointing to Burke, who says the NHL previously was a leader in inclusion.
I don't get the logic. I don't accept it. I don't buy it.
NHL Pride Nights, meanwhile, will continue. The first this season coming this Friday, incidentally hosted by Travis Dermott's Arizona Coyotes. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A wolf-dog hybrid is on the loose near Parksville. Pet owners are being urged to keep their animals close as efforts continue to try to catch it before it attacks again. Already, 2 dogs have been bitten. The canine culprit appears to have been dumped in the wild about 6 weeks ago off Spring Hill Road. People who have encountered the 150-pound animal hope it's captured soon.
That's a little disappointing. You know, why you would dump an animal like that is obviously aggressive.
Since the wolf-dog hybrid isn't actually wild, conservation officers will not trap it. Animal Control says they're still assessing the area to figure out where to put up cages. Warning signs are up now, though, as this area is still busy with people out walking their dogs despite the many wolf-dog sightings. 150 pounds. Big animal, Darius Madavi. Who's here with the forecast.
I am,
Yeah.
and I'm also here to say wolves are adorable, and I would love to have a pet wolf if it would not eat me and kill me.
Okay, you're one of how many?
Yeah, come on, they're so cute.
They are beautiful animals in the wild.
In the wild. I won't get one. It's fine, Dan. Good. Okay, let's talk weather watches and warnings. Many of them have come down now, especially in the southeastern parts of BC, but we do still have some for some of the highways, both on the island and here. The Okanagan Connector connecting Hope to the Okanagan. We have a wind warning still for Howe Sound that actually came down and has gone back up now, and still a rainfall warning mixed with a snow warning on the island. So that should come down by tonight, because overnight tonight should be pretty much the last of the precipitation we get here. You saw that build in. So this is the next 24 hours, mostly just a little bit of lingering stuff passing through the southern parts of the province. We do have a little bit more building into the north coming to, over the 24 hours following that. But really, that's it. And if we take away the snow here, you can see this is the precipitation. So both rain and snow what we're looking at here, which is why we see a little bit more intensity down in the southern part of the island, because they are still expecting to get some rain heading into tonight, possibly even into tomorrow morning. Now, if we look at the highs over the next few days, you'll notice some places getting cooler, some places warming up a little bit. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but things should be coming back up to seasonal over the next week, although it will be slower here in the south after that Arctic air mass is starting to finally move out. Finally, it's been like a couple days, but I'm over the cold already. We have some sun still happening in southern parts of the province. That's actually going to be spreading to the rest of the province because we are clearing up, and that's the case here in Vancouver as well. A little bit of cloud over the next couple days, but lots of sun to come with our cold.
Very crisp. Now, we've all agreed you can't have a wolf-dog hybrid, but you do have some animal photos that you want to share with us that are a bit more fun and realistic.
And realistic. So the comedy wildlife photos competition is on right now. This is a little swan selfie. This was our producer Miriam's pick. This was your pick, Dan, which is the most terrifying photo of the lot.
See, there you go.
He's trying to smile, but he's not. He's big teeth. He's not doing a
Looks
great
like
job.
me before braces.
This was my favorite photo, a little walrus just chilling out.
Just lounging.
Somebody took a photo of me over the weekend. That one was great. We've got a brown bear. This is in Finland. He's waving hi to the camera. And keep in mind, these are the finalists, not the winners. The winners won't be announced till next month. But a couple birds having a disagreement.
I was going to say, someone's giving someone the what for.
Oh, yeah. You can see the male and the female. And this is a similar vibe, but in owls instead. This is more big brother, little brother situation happening in great horned owls. Here we have some northern gannets that are just really squaring up to protect their babies.
It's a lovely family portrait.
And then, and here's a kangaroo. Is it playing air guitar? Is it seeing if it needs more deodorant?
Oh, that's a Les Paul for sure.
Yeah.
Or a Strat. We know it. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
Global demand for fossil fuels is now projected to peak by the end of this decade. So says the latest World Energy Outlook. It shows around the globe investment in renewables is on the rise. And as Jill English reports, some say that ought to serve as a wake-up call to Canada.
In a year of dark climate realities, finally, some light.
Greetings. A very legitimate reason to be hopeful about the global energy markets.
The International Energy Agency confirming global demand for planet-warming fossil fuels will peak before 2030.
The energy transition is underway, and that at this point, it is going to happen regardless of the climate policies.
For every dollar invested in coal, oil, and gas, $1.8 is spent on clean energy. 5 years ago, this ratio was about 1 to 1. And take a look at solar investment, 10 years ago when compared to oil, and now, for the first time, outpacing it. But Canada is charting a different path.
Canada is one of the countries that hasn't yet faced the necessity to phase out fossil fuels.
Last year, oil and gas investments in Canada were $37 billion. Investment in solar was less than $3 billion.
It's in Canada's best interest to take the report that we see today and reports like it and begin placing our bets on the clean economy of the future.
Steve Dick took that bet when he started his solar company in 2009, riding waves of changed and canceled incentives programs.
There's a number of manufacturers that actually came to Ontario to manufacture solar panels and inverters that packed up and left. There's just been so much instability.
In Alberta, a 7-month moratorium halted all new renewables projects this summer.
There's no reason from a resource perspective that we shouldn't see more solar and wind in Canada.
The IEA stressed that current investments won't be enough to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Renewable investments are set to dominate next month's COP28 climate negotiations in Dubai. Jill English, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, a rapper's naming of her furry new friend as an East Coast city. Confused and delighted.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. Download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
Rapper Doja Cat has inspired a tidal wave of reactions online after she named her cat. It has a stark connection to New Brunswick's Port City. She posted a picture of the scruffball on Instagram, and ever since, Maritimers have been weighing in.
Chances are, if you live in New Brunswick, you've heard of the Irvings. You may have also heard of celebrity singer Doja Cat. But did you know there's a connection? Meet Irving St. John.
Doja Cat now actually has a cat, and she introduced him on social media as Irving St. John, Irv for short.
This both delighted and confused New Brunswickers.
So I thought it'd be funny to see what some of my fellow New Brunswickers thought of this name for her new cat. I'm proud to be a New Brunswicker now. Irving family in New Brunswick having a heart attack. Casually naming him after the most dead billionaire from New Brunswick. Name your cat after the richest family in my city, followed by the name of my city. Doja is a secret East Coaster. Doja, how do you know about Irving? I'm so invested. Doja, we have an Irving refinery in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. What in the New Brunswick? Big day for everyone working at the Irving in St. John, New Brunswick.
But what do New Brunswickers living right here in St. John think about this?
It's a really fitting name. The kitten's fur is kind of everywhere and frazzled and kind of looks like the smokestacks out on the east side. So I think it's the perfect name.
I honestly was wondering if she knew about St. John, New Brunswick for the longest time. I think maybe it's a coincidence, but I love it.
Ready? The kitten's name is Irving St. John.
I've seen the picture of the cat, so it's kind of interesting she called it Irving St. John. I'm not sure what the correlation is, but it's kind of funny and cool.
I think it's a bit telling. He looks like he's been in an oil spill, so maybe that's why.
So, is the name Irving St. John coincidence or conspiracy? We may never know, but Doja Cat's cat is one way to get New Brunswick on the map.
Doja Cat, if you ever have a BC cat, how about Port Moody Pattison? Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this show on CBC Jam, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC. Tanya Fletcher will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Have a good night.